From the Casey State Bank Digital First Studio at WTWO, this is the Goin to the Hoop podcast. Sponsored by Terre Haute Chevrolet, Indiana State University, and Kirshner Building Centers.
Happy basketball season as always, everyone. Welcome to this week's Goin to the Hoop podcast with Nicole Christine and Jack Burney. I am Grant Pugh. A lot of basketball, boys and girls, to get to this week. Welcome to this week's show. You guys ready to talk some hoops?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
First off, we start with the number one team in 1A, the Bloomfield Cardinals. Blake Neal just named Player of the Week this past week. You saw Bloomfield in action against Washington on Friday. The Cards they just got a big win against Sullivan earlier this week. They seem to be rolling at the right time.
They really are. And what's fun about watching them, I didn't get to watch more than just the first half. I had to get back to the station. So unfortunately, I didn't get to see the rest of their run. But in the first quarter, they started off kind of slow. It was almost kind of surprising. Peter Combs was pretty quiet. They were guarding him really well, actually, for him being just basically unstoppable for the most part. So they were doing well on that. Hats off to Washington there. But as soon as they start picking up, it's like all the pieces fall together. And you've got Neal, and you've got Combs, and you've got Scomp, and you've got all these guys that work together. You've got young guys and veterans, and they just look like a really complete package there, and I just love watching them because nobody is hogging the ball. You don't have people who are just the go-to guy. Like I said, Combs was kind of quiet at the beginning, and they were still scoring and keeping the game at a good pace. And so I'm excited to see what they do rolling into the postseason because I think we have a team on our hands that could go really far, and we could be seeing them in Indy representing 1A, which is great.
Sectional draw happens on Sunday. We'll get to that a little later in the show. We also have a special guest later in the show. Jack, your first taste of high school basketball in the Wabash Valley, starting, you had the trip to Clay City and Chackamack last week as well.
Yeah, the first thing that jumped off the page to me was the home court advantage both places. The fans were into it. They were loud, and the players really fed off their energy. I went to Chackamack first, and they played really well in that first quarter. They had 80 points, so they had contributions all across the board. Very fun brand of basketball to watch, even though I was just there for the first quarter because I had to run to the other game. And then we went to over the Eel Dome, and they were up big, but they still had their foot on the gas. They had a big win in front of their home crowd as well.
And you got your first taste of girls high school basketball on Saturday with the number one team. They're 27-1 now, the North Knox Warriors. They're back in semi-state this week, and you saw the Warriors last weekend.
Yeah, North Knox was very fun to watch, and I think they have a chance to do something pretty special. I talked to their coach. He feels the same way, but their draw they got for semi-state, each team has above 23 wins, so that's going to be one to keep an eye on. If you were going to watch one, go to one games. If you don't have a dog in this fight, one of those semi-state pairings, I would go to that one. There's a lot of great teams there, but they play a very fun brand of basketball as well. Unselfish. They had a couple players in double figures, but everybody contributed. Got off to a big first quarter lead, 19-5. Kind of let the opponent back into it, but in the fourth quarter, they played clutch defense and made clutch free throws, and I think that's what you need to do. They're 27-1, and that's what you need to do if you want to win these big-time games, which they did. Their first championship regionally since 2014, I believe.
North Knox wins the regional, as does the Bloomfield Cardinals. Bloomfield hasn't won a regional since 2005. Yeah. They didn't have any problems with eminence. They beat the Eels 40-19. Now, Bloomfield going all the way down to New Albany. They have a stacked semi-state as well bracket. Jack, so we're looking at that.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting weekend for sure. And Bloomfield, I think they got a really good shot in that first game. It's going to be very interesting to watch. The other side of the bracket is a little bit more competitive in terms of just amount of wins. But when you're in semi-state, anything can happen. And these teams have won to get where they're at. So I'm excited to see what Bloomfield's able to do as well.
Nicole, you've been here for several years now, 5 years now.
Yes,
you know what it's like, and Jack's learning too, when you have a team, no matter what sport it is, reach semi-state at this level in the season, it makes it special kind of to cover and to see these teams keep moving on. We hope both of them move on this weekend.
Oh, absolutely. And I know that you mentioned just going to a Friday night game during the regular season, the home court advantage. And what I've noticed over the years, I know Grant, you as well, Jack, you're already seeing it, is just how much people show out for their high school teams. It's awesome to see. And so that they're going to travel well. Bloomfield always travels well, and they have the support, of the boys team and the other athletics, but they have the support of the entire community. I went to that Bloomfield game, and I hadn't been down to Bloomfield in a few years to cover a game, and I had people coming up to me like, "Oh, who are you with? Where can I watch this?" Because they want to see, they want to watch the highlights, even if they've been at the game. They're just so into it. And so It's special. Certainly hope both teams make it out of the semi-state. I know we were talking earlier with our guest this week about just the fact that, it's a grind, and it's a grind to get to state. And so if both teams are able to pull it off, hats off to them. And I hope that we're seeing both of these girls teams head to Indy, and we have several to talk about in March too, heading on their way to Indy too. So.
Yeah, the North Knox fans traveled very well as well. They filled up those stands in Crawford County, and the student section ran on the court. We're celebrating with the girls team, so that's pretty cool to see. So they will travel to semi-state as well, so they'll have that little advantage too.
Best of luck to Bloomfield and North Knox moving on this weekend. Can't wait to see what happens there. Wrestling state finals this weekend. There's one Wabash Valley wrestler left, Alex Rose. We're going to have more on him later this week right here at WTWO. The sectional draw is Sunday. It's always an exciting time. Teams get together. They can't wait to see the draw unfold. This will be Jack's first taste of the draw. It's a blind draw, so you don't know what's going to happen. But Nicole, I've covered several of these. It's kind of one of those, okay, the season is almost over, but now we can't wait to see when the real season begins.
Oh, yeah, and these last few games, they matter, but people are already thinking about that draw. And once that comes up, it's like that's a big focus too. You want to get these last few games under your belt. You want to win, of course, and you want to continue to perform throughout the rest of the regular season. But man, you start thinking about March, and you start thinking about those matchups, and it's fun to really get to see the girls go through the process and then watch the guys, and it's a really exciting time. And like you said, it's blind draw, so you watch those pairings come in, and you start thinking back about, oh well, they saw each other in the season, or they haven't seen each other in this long, and you've got those little rivalries that come up, and you start to look deeper into the sectionals and who could be facing off in the championship game, and it's just a really fun time. So it's going to be exciting.
Can't wait to see what happens. Hey, we are just getting rolling on our Going to the Hoop podcast. Our special guest, Coach Dalrymple of the defending state champion North Daviess Cougars, is on the other side of this break. You're watching our Going to the Hoop podcast. Welcome back to our Going to the Hoop podcast. We are getting ready for sectional draw, which is on Sunday, which leads us to our special guest. He's the head coach of the defending state champ, the North Daviess Cougars, Coach Dalrymple. Coach Dal, thanks for taking some time out to come into the station. Join us this week. I mean, this is the time of the year we're gearing up for basketball sectional draw on Sunday. You guys got a great team. I know you're ready for the sectional draw, which is just a few days away.
That's right. It's been a long season. Got a few games left here the last couple weeks of the year, but we're definitely ready for March and see what that holds. And like you said, it was a fantastic run last year to get done what we got done. It was very, very special for myself and our team and our entire community.
And I know, Coach, that, taking you back again to prepping for this season and knowing what you were about to try to achieve again, how has that progressed through the season, and how has that messaging been that, hey, we're the defending state champs and this is how we need to perform this year? Certainly a great season so far, but how has that messaging evolved throughout the season?
Well, I'd say it's been completely different than most defending state champs. Most defending state champs get to defend their own class.
Yeah.
We don't get to do that, unfortunately. Matter of fact, we even moved up to another level from where we were supposed to play in the 2A level. We're in a 3A level. So this season has been nothing but a learning experience for all of us. I'm in my 23rd year of varsity coaching, and I have learned more this year than previous 10, 12 years combined, because you kind of get things down to a science. 3A basketball is completely different, and the way we're playing is completely different. So we've had a lot of trial and error, a lot of film watching. We get better in the film room. We get as much out of that as we do on the practice floor. Our kids are seniors, they're veterans, and so we have developed that system throughout the season. And like I said, it's just been a learning experience. It's been a trial and error thing where we take stuff out and we add stuff, and here we are at the end of the season, and I hope we're ready to go.
You mentioned moving up to 3A. Just talk about the difference in your play style, what you guys have kind of had to adjust to.
Yeah, big-time athletes. We've been all over the state. We anticipated this team. We upped our schedule last year. We upped it even more this year, playing Beech Grove up at Southport early. Then we went to the Hall of Fame and played Penn and Northwood as well. We played all kinds of number one teams, Linton and Bloomfield and Orleans, and we're going to Seymour this Friday. So we're really trying to learn that style. It's quicker, it's more physical, and again, most teams can put 5 guys on the floor that can really play basketball. And sometimes at the 1A level, you don't see that all the time. So it's been a learning experience. We've always we still have the same philosophy. We still want to get great shots. We still want to run good offense and play really good defense. Sometimes there's nothing you can do defensively, though. I mean, teams are so good and have such good players at the 3A and 4A level. You've got to score more, and that's been a change for us, and one that we felt like we could handle, and thus far in the season we have.
Yeah, you stack the schedule for a reason. I feel like you guys stack it every year. Do you feel like that stacked schedule helps prepare you for the ultimate, which is the state tourney, which is just a couple of weeks away?
There's no doubt about it. Last year, our tournament that we host there in Christmas, we have Fort Wayne Blackhawk and Brownstown Central, and all of those teams that come in. Last year we played. It was Gary Hammond Central. That's who it was. And we played Hammond Central because we knew if we made it all the way to where we wanted to get, we would probably play similar teams. So, we kind of plan ahead and see this coming, and just understand that, we traveled all the way to Connorsville last week, and, all of these teams, Connorsville, Beech Grove, all of these teams feed into our regional, and we understand that you're going to have to play them. You're going to have to get to know them. You're going to have to get that style down and figure out where you can use your strengths to go against some of these teams.
And you mentioned a lot of seniors, a lot of veterans on your team. That's one of the best things when you're out watching your team, is just how well they gel together and how many good leaders there are. What does this senior class mean to you, and how great has it been to see them continue to fight? They won state, right? They could have said we reached the top, but they have been hungry this year again and have really showed out week after week. What has that been like to watch as a coach?
Well, it's the seniors I have this year. I've had some very special groups. This is right there with any special group that I've had. Probably the oldest team I've ever had. I've got 7 seniors. 6 of them play a whole bunch. One of our seniors doesn't play as many minutes, but every kid on the team is 18 years old, and they played 3 or 4 years at the varsity level. So like I said, we get as much out of film because we all think alike. There's no explaining anymore, really. They've been around me, and I've been around them for 3 or 4 years. And so the mental side of it is fantastic. And the effort, the will to win, they've taught me, they've raised my game. And I thank them all the time that, they have pushed me. They inspire me. They make me be ready and invent things and do things in practice, because I've had them 3 or 4 years. I don't want them to get bored, and
Sure.
We have to really up our game there. So kids are great. I try not to think about the end of it. That's going to be a hard moment when we're all said and done here this year. But we're going to take it one day at a time and see what happens.
Grant and I actually checked before the show, 78 victories in the last 4 years for that senior class. They've had a lot of success. They won states last year. Just having that experience, that pedigree on your team, just what does that do for your confidence as we get going towards this state tournament?
Well, I hope it plays a big factor. We found out last year that we really didn't start playing our best basketball until probably I can pinpoint right where it was, the second half of the regional championship. Up until then, the crowd, the moment, who we were playing affected us. We were down 19-11 to bar even at halftime of the sectional championship, 11 points. We were nervous, and we didn't play like ourselves. Did the same thing in the morning game of the regional. Did the same thing all the way through halftime of the Borden game regional championship. It was 12-8 at halftime, and it wasn't, people weren't holding the ball. We were trying to score. We just weren't performing in that big stage. And I was pretty calm with them all the way through that setup until the halftime of the Borden game. And I'd had enough, and I think they had enough. And we got together at halftime and said, listen, you guys are about to waste an opportunity here. We need to go, man. We need to embrace this and play. And from that moment on, we really embraced the moment, embraced the pressure that comes with it. We decided that pressure is a privilege. People don't put pressure on teams that don't win. And so we embraced that. We played for our community. We played for our families. And, the result speaks for itself.
One of those guys that embraces the presser all the time, Jalen Mullen, who just broke 2 more records on Friday, assist in scoring. I mean, you've had a lot of great players. You've coached a lot of great players. Jalen is up there, sure, with one of the tops you've coached.
He's as good as he is talent-wise, ball handling, shooting, passing, whatever it is. He's that much better as a leader, as a competitor. He rubs off on everyone. He accepts nothing less than your best. He's vocal about it. I mentioned the most veteran group I've had, the most player-led team I've ever had. Just yesterday in practice, I stopped something and I was going to tell them something. Well, I couldn't get anything in because they were discussing it and talking about it, and we've kind of learned how to utilize that. So Jalen has been a huge part of this program over the last 4 years. You mentioned he's broke those records. He's got the most wins all time at North Daviess as a player. His 2 classmates, Lance and Logan, are second and third most wins all time at North Daviess. So they have, we did the ultimate thing last year, but they also understand that they have one more opportunity here, and they've really not backed down, not backed off, not relaxed. They have a goal in mind, and they've worked all year to try to get there.
You said pressure is a privilege. I think we can all say that walking into North Daviess in that gym,
goodness, yeah.
The pressure is on for a visiting
Sure.
team. What is it like to have that be your home court and really just the opportunity to coach at a program like that? I know it's meant so much to you. What has it been like as those defending state champs to put that pressure on all those visitors coming in?
Sure. There's a lot of pride there, a lot of pride in our community. You know, I said last year, we've been watching teams like Washington, who's 10 miles away, Bar Reeve, who's 8 miles away, Lagodi, who's 10, 12 miles away, go win state championships, go to the state finals. I mean, I think there's been 5 or 6 state championships in the last 10 years. Our sectional represents the last 2 1A state champions. Bar Reeve won it, and then we won it. So our community and myself, I've been there 23 years, wanted that so badly. And to finally get that, we're so proud, but we're not going to rest on it. We so appreciate our crowd. I mean, the crowd that travels to Clay City or travels to wherever we go, it's been fantastic this year. And I think our folks realize that, you know, we may be seeing a once in a lifetime thing here at North Daviess, and they too don't want to miss that. But like I said, from that second half of the Borden game, we learned to play for our community. You hear all the time players say how much their crowd means and the home court advantage. It's true. And up until this year, or even, you know, last year in the tournament run, I never felt that as much as I feel it, and as our kids feel it and feed off of it. So it's been fantastic, and we're enjoying it while it's going on.
Coach, you know, 3 regular season games left until the tournament. Just, do you put an extra importance on those games, knowing that they come right before tournament time, and make sure the team, you know, gets some certain things right? And if so, like, what do you think the team needs to do in those last 3 games to get you guys playing your best basketball as you get towards tournament?
Well, absolutely. You know, here in February, you want to really be honing in on doing everything right. And you know, we've set up our schedule here where we travel to Seymour, who's a very quality 4A basketball team. We went and watched them last night, as a matter of fact, and they beat Greensburg by 10 points, and they're a good ball team. So again, we're going on the road, tough environment, very physically tough, very athletically gifted team that will set up very well going into the sectional in 2 weeks. Same thing with Sullivan next week. You know, we love to have them at the very end, because there's not anything on the line as far as a conference or anything like that. But both teams have been really solid the last few years, and I think that game has helped both teams. Now, you don't necessarily have to win them. You know, look at what Sullivan did last year. We beat them, and then they went on their run as well last year. You just have to be playing well. You have to be hitting your stride, and it's nice to win. It's nice to not know how to lose heading into that tournament. But, you know, the main thing is you just want to be playing at a certain level with your team.
Great last game, as you said. The last couple of years, it's come down to the wire a couple times. 2 years ago, it came down to the wire at Sullivan for you guys. Last year, it's just a great measuring stick to start sectional. Speaking of that sectional, you're bumped up to 3A this year, and a venue change, so to speak, with a sectional as well. There's been a lot of talk about that, which can be exciting too, Coach.
Yeah. Well, there was a couple. You know, the IHSA leaves that choice to the school as far as, do you want to play at your level, and not many people, I don't know of anyone that takes advantage of that, or I don't know if you call it an advantage, but, you know, we looked at our team, we looked at our location, and the venue was as much a part of our decision as anything. You know, it's either go play at North Knox or Eastern Green, and then you play your regional if you happen to win your sectional down at Paoli. Well, here it's play your sectional at Washington, play your regional at Washington, play your semi-state at Washington. It's a no-brainer, you know, and not that we're going to get that far, but if we do, to play 10 miles from home in a gym that we're somewhat familiar with and will be really familiar with by the time we get to those points. I mean, we went through it at Lagodi. You know, you win your sectional at Lagodi and you play the regional at Lagodi. What an advantage for us, who's already played 3, 4. We played 6 games on Lagodi's home floor last year before the regional. So, you know, some of those teams, it was their first time seeing that gym. So the venue was a huge part of it, of our decision. And the second part was just the style of play. So we know every team. It was not a disrespect to 2A or 3A. We know we can get beat in either one. We just felt the style fit more in the 3A level. But we know Washington and Lincoln and Southridge and Princeton Heritage Hill, all those teams can take us out. Pike Central, we know that. But we also know that we can compete and we can be right there if we play well.
For sure. Now, stepping a little bit away from gameplay itself and talking, we love asking about the game day and the traditions or any superstitions you might have, So do you have any? Can you share them with us if you do, or are they secret? And what does a game day look like for Coach Dal and the Cougars?
Well, it's a long day. I'll say that. I still have to work. I'm the assistant principal athletic director at North Daviess. So invariably, there's always problems on Friday that you have to deal with, which some of that helps the day go along. I would say the only tradition or superstition, my son is a sixth grader, and he picked last year as his first year that he wanted to be around our team and he wanted to be a manager. Well, he's 1 for 1 as far as getting the ultimate thing done. So I told him that doesn't happen every year, So, but me and him we got about 4 or 5 AC/DC songs on iPod. So we plug that in on the way to the games, and we jam out to AC/DC and get ready for the games. But really, it's not about luck. It's about being prepared. It's about doing the things you need to do throughout the week to be ready for Friday and Saturday. So we really just try to take care of everything that we can control and go play.
Coach, you're a busy man. Got a game Friday. Thanks for your time for coming on our show this week. We can't wait to see what the draw is on Sunday. Can't wait to follow the Cougars into the postseason.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.
As head coach of the North Daviess Cougars, we are back with more Going to the Hoop podcast right after this.
Here are this week's matchups. Kirshner Building Center is proud to support local sports in the Wabash Valley.
Welcome back to our Going to the Hoop podcast. A big special thanks to Coach Dalyrmple, the North Daviess Cougars, for coming up here and being on this week's show. The Cougars are back in action this week. They're at Seymour. Senior night is Saturday, and then they have the big one next week at the Sullivan Golden Arrows. We transition, though, as we do this time of the year, from basketball back over to football. Super Bowl Sunday in the books. What are your guys' thoughts as the Kansas City Chiefs win another Super Bowl? And we're talking of a dynasty, but overall, your thoughts on the Super Bowl?
I thought it was a good competitive game. I thought the Eagles did exactly what they were supposed to and what they wanted to in that first half. In Mahomes' 3 playoff losses before this, the Chiefs had lost the time possession battle, and the Eagles had the ball it felt like the whole first half, and they were up 10, and then they just couldn't stop the Chiefs on offense in the second half. I think the Chiefs scored in every possession in the second half, so it was a competitive game. That holding call is going to be what a lot of people talk about. I think it's, you can say if it was a hold or not, but I think in that moment, you kind of let the players play. That's just my opinion on it, but sure. I think, letting it get to that point, not stopping them once in the second half also kind of hurt the Eagles. But it was a good game. I think Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts played really well, and it was, a good way to wrap up the season between the two best teams, I think, clearly in the NFL this year.
Yeah, I think it's, we talked to Coach Dow about the importance of having your veterans, having those leaders that have been around, but it is really fun to see younger. I mean, obviously Patrick Mahomes is acting and for all purposes is a veteran now in terms of what he's accomplished, but it's fun to see some of these younger guys come in, and you're not seeing a Tom Brady in the Super Bowl or somebody who's been around for years and years. You're seeing someone like Jalen Hurts who, I saw some discussion about the fact that if there was ever a losing player who deserved the MVP, it could have been, the argument made for Jalen Hurts based on some of the stuff he was able to do. Like you said, I mean, they did all they could and then some. So really impressive. Hope we see him back in a Super Bowl in the future because he's really fun to watch. But, I agree. The holding call, I think at that stage and in that game and at that point, you don't call that, but again, not a ref, not paid that money to do that, so whatever. But I think it is unfortunate that the game was going the way it was, and then that's going to have that stain on it now because both teams did play really well and competed, and it just kind of sucks that it came down to a field goal based on that call. But I thought it was good. I thought Rihanna was great, so I think overall it was a good Super Bowl. It was fun night to watch, and I had no complaints. I'm just excited to see what they're both able to do in the future, because we're looking at two quarterbacks who just know the game of football and are more than excelling at it. So what were your thoughts, Grant?
My thoughts are the same thing. I mean, it was hard to see Patrick Mahomes losing in State Farm Stadium. You hate to see the game end on a play like that, especially after, you wanted to see the Eagles get the ball back with a chance. But also if Jalen Hurts doesn't fumble that ball, if they don't give up the long punt return to Kadarius Toney, several things that cost them the game. Now both coordinators from the game are coaching in the NFL. We start right away with the Colts. Shane Steichen, just 2 days after leading the Eagles almost to a championship, he's been named head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts going back to the Eagles like they did with Frank Reich, and now Steichen's ready to roll in Indy.
Yeah, and I think Colts fans should be really excited by this move.
Yeah.
Just looking what Steichen was able to do coaching Jalen Hurts, the Colts have a top draft pick. Maybe they take a C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young and let Shane Steichen develop him. And I think just seeing Shane Steichen's play calling this year, I think the Eagles were the best offense by far in the NFL all year long. And I think Jalen Hurts had an MVP-type season when, not even 4 years ago, he was benched at Alabama. Right. So, I mean, just his ability to develop a quarterback from that into an MVP candidate should excite Colts fans. And I think it's a good hire. I mean, going back to offense, Frank Reich was an offensive guy, like you said, from the Eagles, and they had some success there, made the playoffs the first 2 years, I think, under Frank Reich. So we'll see if it happens again with Steichen.
Yeah, and I think going off of what you were saying about developing that quarterback, I think the Colts need to just put the chapter of their program where they're just recycling these guys who only have, this is their last stop. They really need to stop doing that. I know that's not news to anyone that hasn't worked for them, but I think the key of developing a young guy that they draft and really building a brand around that person would be a really good move for them, because what they've been doing hasn't been working, right? So, switch it up, try something new. And I think he's a good hire too. I also think that, the unfortunate thing about the NFL and coaching in general, in a couple years, we could see Nick Sirianni losing his job, when he's had such a great, so it's so hard to say, if they do this, it'll be great and he's going to be awesome. But I think right now it was a good move. It was certainly better than, keeping it the way that they had it. And I'm just glad that we aren't talking about, the Colts keep holding on to old times and sticking with that. I'm glad that we are moving in a new direction for all the Colts fans, in this area and all of our viewers who who root for them. But, We'll see what he's able to do. It really is going to matter who they draft and what they're able to do with some young talent, because they're in that circle right now, that cycle. So
now the fun begins, NFL free agency and everything else. Hey, we are wrapping up this week's show. Any final thoughts from you guys? We get set for a big weekend. Got semi-state for girls basketball, boys season winding down. A couple of big college games coming up this weekend as well. February's almost over. It's crazy.
Yeah. I just think good luck to the girls' teams. Really hoping that they can both pull it out. I would love to see them in Indianapolis.
That would be great.
Absolutely. Same here.
Yeah.
Hey, for Jack and Nicole, thanks for watching our Going to the Hoop podcast this week, and our director, Luke. We'll see you around probably at a game this weekend or certainly on next week's show.